I'm here on what I think is a fairly hot topic lately, and that is the subject of Alan Lee, who is the head of AFSCME International, I believe. I'm asking this council to consider some measure in which to censor Alan Lee from speaking at this podium. I'm asking for this for a variety of reasons, the most important of which is that 2 weeks ago he got up before this council and purported to speak on behalf of an employee, which was recanted by the employee's wife 1 week later, quite tearfully, and I saw it on television. Mr. Lee had no authority in the manner in which he represented, but yet he stood before this council and did so. Now, I'm in the business of practicing law. That's apparently not been a secret to Mr. Lee or many of you. When a lawyer intentionally makes a misrepresentation in court, they're subject to sanctions, monetary sanctions, among others. And I'm asking this council to censor Alan Lee from speaking at this podium. He does not live in Torrance. He does not represent any Torrance employee union, and he comes up to speak on issues that have been clearly demonstrated to this council that he has no authority to speak upon. He caused trauma to that family. He caused trauma to this city staff. And I'm asking this council to put down the hammer and say it's time we listen to the people that vote and make decisions in this city and not the talking heads of others. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Carrie Nigerian. I live at 23907 Huber Avenue in Torrance. My husband is Mike Nigerian. Mike has worked for the City of Torrance for many years in the Public Works Department. He has been on a medical leave since February of this year, battling non-Hodgkin's lymphoma in his sinuses. He has received chemotherapy, radiation, and he's trying to get ready to go to UCLA for high-dose chemo and bone marrow transplant. In these most difficult times, Mike has received tremendous support and compassion from the City of Torrance, from his department to HR to the city manager, Mr. Jackson. Mike and I are grateful for the unconditional support and understanding his department manager, Bob Brewer, and supervisors Tony Mulligan and Jerry Armstrong have given us. Occasionally we send notes to Mike's bosses to let him know how Mike is doing. When Alan Lee called our house last week, just before the start of the council meeting, he told me someone had given him a copy of a letter that we had written to Bob, Tony, and Jerry. The letter was just a normal thing we've been doing since Mike's been off of work. Every so often we drop a line just to let the bosses know what's happening with Mike's treatment and how things look down the road. This particular letter was giving Mr. Brewer, Mr. Mulligan, and Mr. Armstrong a heads up that Mike would probably not be back to work within the 8-month period, and that he might file for early retirement. In the letter, we did put if Mike had a chance of making it back to work, he would be there. He loves his job. Mr. Lee spoke to Mike. I told him that he was going to change some rules and asked Mike if the leave were to be extended, would he be interested? Mike said yes. That was all there was of the conversation. We were shocked and angered to hear what Mr. Lee said at the council meeting. It was totally untrue what he said about the city's treatment of Mike. Everyone we have turned to for help or guidance has been more than helpful and willing to help us. A lot of people have gone out of their way. We are so grateful for this. I'm sorry, I'm just really upset about this. It is terribly unfair that Mike was portrayed as a victim and used as a pawn to further Alan Lee's agenda. Mike and I are in total agreement with every word Mr. Jackson said, and we are glad Mr. Jackson was at the meeting to state the correct facts. We are distressed that people now have the impression that Mike is being treated unfairly by the city. I want to make it clear that Mike had nothing to do with Mr. Lee's accusations, and we are grateful and thankful that the City of Torrance has stood by our side. Thank you. I'm really sorry.
Thank you very much.
Thank
and our best wishes.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. Alan Lee on behalf of AFSCME. I want to talk about a guy by the name of Mike Nigerian. He is a sanitation worker. He's the guy that picks up your trash every day. He's been stricken with cancer. And his co-workers gave him a letter that he and his wife sent to his co-workers and his supervisors. The letter said in sum and substance, I wanted to get you a copy of the letter, and I will. I just had to run over here, didn't have time. It said in sum and substance that Mike may not be able to come back, not because he don't want to come back, not because he won't be able to come back, not because the cancer is killing him. It's because the city has said to him that your 8 months are up. It's time to go. We don't care how long you've worked here, and we don't care that you have cancer, and we don't care that you may be able to come back to work in 4 or 5 months. And I talked to Mike just a little while ago. I said, Mike, do you want to come back or do you want to retire? He said, I want to come back. And he's going through all the treatments and giving it his best fight. Cancer is not killing him. The thought of him losing his job is what's doing him in. The thought of him, once he loses his job, to lose his medical care is what's doing him in. Hope is not going to get Mike Nigerian well. What I'm saying here tonight, who is going to stand up and who is going to speak up for Mike Nigerian? We can get into a pissing contest later, but this is about Mike Nigerian.
We've worked very hard with this gentleman to provide his needs during his leave of absence. I think it's unkind and disposing of supervisors who've really worked to see if there are ways of keeping this gentleman on the job. The law is the law. It's 8 months at the present time. We're in the midst of a salary negotiation. Maybe there will be resolutions or modifications to that, but he's running against his leave of absence. We have to fill positions at a point in time in some way, shape, or form to continue picking up refuse. I know the gentleman. I wave to him every Thursday on a email I receive from him. We have a kind and caring attitude towards this gentleman and work with him as far as we can under the law. And to have somebody say that we are intentionally trying to destroy this individual really upsets me to the bottom of my toes. And I'm tired of this attitude where we are the meanies and only person that is good is a person who is not in the city of Torrance, who has taken a leave of absence, who is not working, and speaks out for individuals in such a way. I've sat here and listened to Mr. Lee in which he says bad things about supervisors and managers who do not deserve to be kicked and chewed out in that sort of way, particularly by an individual who is not, at the present time, an employee here in the city of Torrance.